Madam President.
Senator from Kentucky.
We're currently borrowing $50,000 a second. We borrow $4 billion a day, and we're borrowing over $1 trillion every year. The situation has gotten out of control, and I think the situation of our deficit in our country threatens our country. And in fact, I think it's the #1 threat to our national security and our security as a nation is this overwhelming burden of debt. Many economists have said that this burden of debt is actually causing us to lose 1 million jobs a year. It crowds out private investment because we got to take care of financing this enormous debt. Amidst all of this, we have rules in place. There's a Budget Act that we've had in place since the 1970s that requires that this body put forward a budget. The problem is that we have no budget and have had no budget for 3 years. Now you would say, how can this be when we have a law that says that the majority party has to have a budget, and yet we have no budget? They are in defiance of the law. Then if you come to us and you say, well, we want money spent on X item, we can't even do anything about it because there are no appropriation bills. If you don't have a budget, you don't have appropriation bills, you can't alter up or down the appropriation bills because we don't have a budget to go by. In fact, every bit of spending that we do up here is in defiance of our own rules because we're supposed to compare the spending bills to the budget, and we have no budget. Now, many of us have been promoting something new. This would be a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution because we don't seem to be doing a very good job balancing a budget. Now, you and your families, when you have less money coming in, you spend less money. Every American family has to do this. Why can't Washington simply spend what comes in? Shouldn't be that complicated. But they aren't obeying their own rules, so I think we need stronger rules. That would be an amendment to the Constitution that says you must balance the budget. We had a vote on it. 47 of us on our side of the aisle voted for it, and no one on the other side voted for it. Our balanced budget amendment to the Constitution would require that the budget balance within 5 years. In that vein, what our office has done is put together a budget that does balance in 5 years, and it actually, over a 10-year period, would reduce the deficit by $2 trillion. Ours is the only budget that will balance in 5 years and begin paying down the debt over 10 years. Right now, Congress has an approval rating of 11%. Maybe that has something to do with the fact that we aren't doing our job. We aren't passing any budget, much less a balanced budget. If people vote for our budget, we would balance in 5 years and begin paying down the debt. I think the stock market would be ecstatic to hear this. Now, how do you do this? In order to balance the budget, you have to tackle entitlement reform. Currently, Social Security is $6.2 trillion short of money. The taxes you pay in Social Security are less than what we pay out. Social Security is essentially insolvent. Now you ask, well, how come my check keeps coming? Your check will always keep coming. As the bankruptcy grows deeper and deeper, your checks will come. They won't buy anything. You're already seeing this at the pump. Gasoline prices have doubled. Is it because gas is more precious? No, it's because the value of your dollar is shrinking. The value of your dollar is shrinking because we print up all this new money to pay for this massive debt. It is unsustainable, and one way or another, it's going to come to a head. Will it come to a head through the destruction of our currency paying for this debt? I don't know, but we certainly need a budget. Ours will be a budget that balances in 5 years. People say, why don't you compromise with the other side? We will, but they have to have a budget. If ours balances in 5 and the other side will promote one that balances in 10, compromise would be 7.5. But if the other side doesn't have a budget, or if the other side has a budget, the president put forward a budget, and we will vote on that too, his never balances. So we've got infinity for their side, and we've got 5 years on our side. How do you get halfway from infinity to 5 years? If you're going to compromise, they have to come to the table. We have to engage in a debate. Entitlements are 65% of the budget. They call it mandatory spending, and nobody wants to do anything about it. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, 65% of the budget. If you don't tackle entitlement reform, you can't fix it. We have a proposal on the table, Social Security reform. We fix Social Security. The way we fix it is we gradually let the age rise of eligibility to 70 over about 20 years, and we means test the benefits. Not on the current people, but on the next wave. My generation will have to wait longer. Why? Is it because we want to change things? No, it's because we're living longer. We all have a longer life expectancy, and then we had smaller families. This isn't anybody's fault. It's not Democrats' fault. It's not Republicans' fault. We just had a bunch of large families born after World War II. They're all retiring, and each subsequent generation had less children. It's a demographic fact. Combine that with the fact that we're living longer, you have to make changes. But we have a proposal on the table. We will fix Social Security. How do we compromise if the other side won't come up with a proposal? $6 trillion short. Social Security is $6 trillion in the hole. Medicare, $35 to $40 trillion in the hole. We have a solution. We will give every senior citizen in the country the same health care plan I have. The same health care plan that every senator and congressman has, we're willing to give it to them. And you know whose idea this was? Senator John Kerry from Massachusetts, a Democrat. We've taken his idea and put it forward, but we can't get anybody on the side to talk to us. They've given up. It's an election year. They're not going to do anything this year. We didn't do anything last year. So we haven't done anything to fix entitlements. We've done nothing to fix Social Security, nothing to fix Medicare. How do you compromise with a side that has no proposition, that won't put anything forward? But we have a 5-year plan that balances in 5 years, and we fix Social Security. We save Social Security in perpetuity, which I laughingly say is a long time. We also fix Medicare. We save Medicare. Medicare is facing a $35 to $40 trillion deficit, and we're willing to save it. But the other side has to come to the table, and nobody's showing up to debate these things. No one is proposing any budget on the other side. No one is proposing any entitlement reform. In our budget, we save Social Security, we save Medicare, and we go one step further. We have tax reform that would help the country, would make it fair. Some on the other side say, well, let's get rid of all those loopholes for special interest. We do it. We do a flat tax, 17% for all businesses, 17% for all personal. You get to deduct your kids and your house, and that's it. No other deductions, no other special interest exemptions, no other special credits for any special business or special enterprise, a flat 17% for everybody. You'd see a boom in this country like you've never seen if we would do it. What would compromise be? Maybe the other side wants 25% and I want 17%. We go in the middle and we do 22%. That would be compromise. But how do we compromise with the other side when there is no budget? There is no entitlement reform proposed from the other side. There is no tax reform proposed from the other side. How do we compromise if there is no other side? If the other side has decided not to show up this year, if this year is going to be a waste of time and everybody's going to just run for office, maybe we shouldn't be paid this year. Maybe you shouldn't pay your congressman. Maybe you shouldn't pay your senator this year if we're not going to have proposals from both sides. This means we should be talking about entitlement reform, talking about tax reform, talking about budgets, and there would be give and take. But the only way to get give and take in our country is people need to show up for the debate. We need to do our job. Why is there not a committee in Washington? Not any committee. Why is there not any committee meeting every day on how to fix and save Social Security? Nobody's talking about it. There is no such committee. Why is there not a committee discussing Medicare reform? Meeting every day, Republicans and Democrats talking and figuring out how to way out of this. There is no such committee. Why isn't there a committee on tax reform discussing how we could make our tax code simpler and make it easier for people to figure out and make the rates lower so we could spur the economy? Every time we've lowered tax rates, unemployment is cut in half. When we had an upper rate of 90%, Kennedy lowered it to 70%. Unemployment was cut in half. When Reagan lowered the top rate from 70% to 50%, unemployment was cut in half. When Reagan lowered it again from 50 to 28, unemployment was cut in half. But we as a country have to decide that we don't want to punish rich people, that we don't want to go out and punish corporations. We work for these people. We want them to do better. The oil and gas industry employs 9.2 million people and pays $86 million a day in taxes. We want them to do better. Let's don't punish them with more taxes and regulations. Let's make their taxes lower and their regulatory burden lower so they can drill for more oil in our country and employ more people in our country. So these are the decisions we have to make as we go forward. We have a budget that can balance in 5 years. It's what our country needs. I think people would react, and the marketplace in particular would react in a tremendous fashion if we would move forward and vote for a budget. The Republicans will have 4 or 5 budgets presented, some of them that balance in 5, some of them balance in 8, some of them balance in 28, but we're at least trying. We're showing up and we're presenting budgets that would balance at some finite period of time. I tell people, if it's never going to balance, it shouldn't even be presented. If it's not going to balance in your lifetime, if you say it's going to balance in somebody else's lifetime, when somebody else is going to be here in Congress, you've abdicated your responsibility. We can do better than this. The American people expect us to do better than this. The American people expect us to show up and do our job. We will today vote on these budgets. And what I would ask the American people is look and see how your representatives vote. Look and see how your senators vote. Look and see whether or not your senators believe in balancing the budget. Or if they think, doesn't matter, we'll just print up more money. But realize if their answer is to just print up more money, if their answer is that deficits don't matter, if that is their answer, I want you to get mad, and I want you to get angry, and I want you to get even. Every time you go to the gas pump and you pay $4 for gas, I want you to know why your gas prices are rising. Not because gas is more precious, but because your dollar is less valuable. Your dollar is less valuable because of the massive debt we run and the irresponsibility up here that nobody's willing to tackle it. I want you to know that there are some on our side who are willing to make the tough decisions. Is it easy to stand here and say to the people in Kentucky and the people in America that the only way we can save Social Security is by letting the age of eligibility rise? Do you think that's really popular? Do you think I'm saying that to pander and try to get votes? I'm saying that because it's the only thing that will save Social Security, and it's the only thing that's going to save our country is we have to make difficult decisions. And so I think that's what needs to happen is people need to say, are you willing to make the tough decisions? Are you willing to stand up and say, this is how we would fix Social Security. This is how we'd save the system. This is how we would correct this deficit that's dragging us all down. One side is willing to do that. I'm willing to do that. And I hope that my fellow senators will today consider voting to balance the budget. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield back my time. Madam President, I yield back my time.